nights you forget with time. And then there are nights that don't leave. They don't fade. They don't soften. They just change shape. That night, my phone lit up like it was trying to warn me. Not one message. Not two. Dozens. Names I didn't recognize. Numbers I hadn't saved. People I had never spoken to, suddenly speaking as if they knew me. I didn't cry. Not because I was strong. Not because I didn't care. But because crying requires a safe place. And that night, even the air didn't feel safe. People think humiliation is loud. Like a slap. Like a scream. Like someone throwing words across a room. But the worst kind? The worst kind is quiet. It's the kind where everyone knows something about you, and you're the last person to hear it properly. It's the kind where you walk into a place you used to belong, and suddenly it feels like a courtroom. Eyes become evidence. Whispers become verdicts. And you realize something terrifying. Not everyone is cruel, but too many people enjoy watching cruelty. Some hearts don't break. They close. I tell this story years later, not because I'm stuck in it. I'm not. I'm telling it because it explains something about me. Something people used to misunderstand. They thought I was cold. They thought I was out of range. They didn't know that sometimes distance isn't arrogance. Sometimes distance is protection. If you had met me before that year, you would have said I was normal. Quiet, yes. Selective, yes. But normal. I had rules. The kind of rules that keep you safe in a world that likes to test boundaries. I didn't give strangers too much access. I didn't confuse attention for affection. I didn't accept charm as proof of character. And I definitely didn't believe in love that arrives loudly. London was always loud enough. So when I transferred to that university for my final year, I promised myself I'd stay invisible. 1 year. One clean ending. Then I'd disappear back into my real life. I didn't know someone else was already watching. Not with love. With ego. The first day I arrived, it was raining. Because of course it was. London has a way of making everything feel like a scene, even when it isn't. I remember standing outside the main building, watching students move in clusters, laughing, rushing, complaining about lectures they hadn't even attended yet. I wasn't nervous. Nervousness is what you feel when you expect something good. I was careful. There's a difference. My course was psychology. People always think that means you can read minds. It doesn't. It means you learn how complicated humans are and how easily they lie to themselves. I studied behavior. I didn't expect to become a case study. My plan was simple. attend classes, submit assignments, keep my head down, keep my life private. I didn't want friends. Not because I hated people, but because friendships come with expectations. And I was tired of expectations. So I chose the corner seat in most lectures. Not to be dramatic, just to be free. Free from forced small talk. Free from being claimed by a group. Free from the exhausting work of being social. On that first day, a girl smiled at me and said, "You're new, yeah?" I smiled back. "Yeah." "What's your name?" "Aria." "Nice. I didn't catch the rest, because I'd already looked past her shoulder, scanning for my classroom. Not because I was rude, because in my mind, conversations were like doors. And I didn't open doors unless I knew what was waiting behind them. It didn't take long. It never does. Being a new girl is like being a headline you didn't write. People look. People guess. People decide they know you, without ever asking. In the first week, boys tried the polite approach. "Need help finding your class?" A smile. "No, thank you." "Want to grab coffee sometime?" A smaller smile. "I'm okay." "You should sit with us." "Maybe another time." Only, there was never another time. Because I wasn't playing hard to get. I wasn't flirting. I was declining. Quietly. Clearly. One guy left a folded note on my desk after lecture. I didn't open it. I handed it back like it was lost property. He blinked at me like I'd broken a rule. You didn't read it?" "I don't need to." I said it softly. Not proudly, just honestly. He laughed, awkward. "You're different." I didn't answer. Because different is rarely a compliment. It's usually a warning. Some people want a girl. Some people want a story they can brag about. By the end of week 1, the whispers started. Not loud, just enough to travel. She doesn't talk much. She's always alone. She's so pretty, though. She thinks she's too good. No, she's just untouchable. Then the phrase came. The label. It wasn't even said to my face at first. I heard it when I walked past a group near the library. One boy said, half laughing, half annoyed, "She's out of range, bro." They all laughed like it was a joke. But I felt it. Because out of range doesn't just mean unreachable. It means people stopped seeing you as human. You become a challenge, a target, a prize. And I hated being treated like any of those things. That's when I started hearing his name. Not because I was looking for it, because the campus carried it around like a song. Zane Carter. I heard it in the cafeteria. I swear, Zane's actually insane. I heard it in the hallway. Did you see Zane today? I heard it in a lecture row behind me. Zane said. Zane did. Zane posted. The kind of name people say like it matters. I didn't care. At least, I thought I didn't. Because names like his usually belong to boys who live off attention. And attention has always felt cheap to me. But then I saw him. He wasn't the only handsome guy on campus, but he moved like he knew he was being watched. Not in an insecure way, in a practiced way, as if admiration was normal, as if eyes were oxygen. He was surrounded by people, always. A group of 5, mostly. The kind of group that laughs loudly, like they want the world to hear them enjoying it. 2 of them were clearly together, comfortable, close, casual with each other's space. One of the guys kept talking with his hands, dramatic, always trying to be the funniest person in the scene. Another had this bored expression that looked like trouble in human form. And then there was Zane, right in the center, smiling like a headline. I remember thinking something simple, not romantic, not hateful, just observational. Some people walk into rooms. He walked into attention. I kept walking. I didn't slow down. I didn't look twice. Because looking twice gives people the wrong idea. And I didn't want to give anyone an invitation. But as I passed them, I felt it. That invisible shift in the air. Like the world had briefly paused. I didn't know why. Not yet. Later that day, I sat in the library, pretending to read. I wasn't reading. I was thinking about the way people reacted to him. The way they laughed a second too quickly. The way they leaned in. The way they shaped themselves around his presence. I didn't understand it. And maybe that's why it mattered. Because I've learned something about men like Zane Carter. They don't fall in love first. They fall in control first. And when they feel control slipping, they don't always reach for kindness. Sometimes they reach for games. I didn't know yet that his friends had noticed me. I didn't know yet that a stupid bet was about to be made. I didn't know yet that the word out of range would become personal. But I remember one detail clearly. As I left the library, the rain had stopped. And in the glass doors, I saw my reflection, and behind it, his. Not close, not obvious. Just there, watching. Like curiosity. Like challenge. Like something that doesn't accept no as an answer. If I had to describe Zane's world in one word, it would be gravity. Everything leaned toward him. The cafeteria was loud that afternoon. Trays clattering, chairs scraping, someone arguing about a deadline they definitely ignored. And at the center of it, like he'd been placed there deliberately, was Zane Carter. He didn't sit at the edge of tables. He owned the middle. His arm draped over the back of his chair. His jaw tilted slightly upward when he laughed. His smile wide enough to feel rehearsed. People didn't interrupt him. They waited. Some boys chase attention. He trained it. He wasn't cruel. Not openly. He was charming in the way that makes you question yourself. The kind of charming that feels like sunlight until you realize it burns. There were 5 of them. Zane, obviously. Then Maya and Ethan. The couple. Comfortable. Easy. Familiar with each other's space. Ethan leaned close when he spoke to her. Maya laughed into his shoulder like it was second nature. They were the kind of couple that makes everyone else feel single. Then there was Aiden. Aiden spoke like silence offended him. Always the first to comment. Always the loudest laugh. If tension ever entered the room, he turned it into a joke. Or tried to. And then there was Rowan. Rowan never sat in the center. He chose the side. Not far away, just not in competition. He didn't talk over people. He didn't flirt with waitresses. He didn't react dramatically. He observed. And I didn't notice him at first. Because observers don't announce themselves. Rowan had this way of listening that made you slightly uncomfortable. Not because he judged you, but because he absorbed you. He'd glance up from his phone when someone spoke. Not quickly, not dramatically, just enough to signal he heard everything. He wasn't shy, he just didn't compete. And in a group built on attention, not competing makes you invisible. Or dangerous. Silence is underestimated. Until it isn't. When Zane told a story about a girl from last semester, something dramatic, exaggerated, everyone laughed. Rowan didn't. He smiled once, briefly, then looked down at his drink. I didn't know then what that meant. Later, I would. There's something interesting about men who are used to being admired. They don't chase. They wait. And they expect you to orbit eventually. Zane didn't approach girls like he needed them. He approached them like he was granting access. A smile here. A compliment there. A playful insult disguised as flirtation. It worked. It had probably always worked. Until it didn't. Because while his world moved toward him, mine moved away. I passed their table that afternoon without slowing down. I didn't look at him. Not deliberately. I just didn't feel the need to. And something subtle shifted. It wasn't dramatic. No gasp. No music drop. Just a pause. a half-second delay in his laughter. A glance. Then another. And this time, he didn't look away first. The hallway was narrow enough that passing someone required awareness. He was walking toward me. Friends behind him. Energy loud. I stayed on my side. He stayed on his. And when we crossed, his shoulder brushed mine. Lightly. Intentional enough to notice. Not enough to accuse. I stopped for half a second. Turned slightly. He looked at me. Directly. Confident. Curious. Waiting. For what? Recognition. Reaction. Invitation. I gave him none. Just a neutral expression. And then I walked. Some egos don't break. They bruise first. Behind me, Aiden's voice cut through the hallway. Bro, she didn't even look at you. Laughter. Not cruel, just amused. But I felt something in the air tighten. Later that day, the 5 of them were sitting on the stone steps outside the business building. I wasn't there. But stories travel. And sometimes, silence carries sound better than words. Aiden leaned back and nudged Zane. Mate, what was that? What was what? Zane replied, casual. She walked past you like you were background noise. Maya laughed softly. Maybe she just doesn't care. Ethan added, teasing. Or maybe you're losing your touch. Zane's smile stayed in place, but his jaw shifted slightly. You're joking, right? He said lightly. Aiden leaned forward. Said her. It wasn't aggressive. It was playful. But playful pressure is still pressure. Zane scoffed. I don't need to. Prove it then. Rowan didn't speak. He watched Zane. Not challenging, just waiting. And something about being watched, without laughter, unsettled Zane more than the teasing did. Pride hates witnesses. Leave it, Rowan said quietly. Not loudly enough to dominate the conversation, just enough to enter it. She's not playing. Aiden rolled his eyes. No one's playing. It's just a bet. Zane leaned forward slightly. A bet? Maya laughed. Oh no. Ethan smirked. Here we go. Zane's eyes narrowed, not in anger, in calculation. I didn't know about the bet that night. I went home, finished my reading on attachment theory, and highlighted sentences about emotional boundaries. I didn't know that I was about to become someone's experiment. And I definitely didn't know that the quiet boy at the edge of the table would soon step into the center of my life. Not as a hero, not as a villain, but as something far more complicated. I didn't know he had decided. That's the strange thing about ego. It makes decisions quietly, but executes them loudly. The next afternoon, I was sitting on the low stone wall outside the psychology building, reviewing notes on attachment styles. Avoidant, anxious, secure. The irony didn't occur to me yet. I felt someone step into my peripheral space. Not too close, close enough to be noticed. I didn't look up immediately, because when you react too quickly, you give power away. "Psychology, right?" he said. The voice was smooth, confident, familiar. I lifted my eyes slowly. Zane Carter. Up close, he was exactly what campus believed he was. Sharp jaw, controlled smile, eyes that scanned reactions instead of faces. "Yes," I answered simply. He leaned back slightly, hands in his pockets. "Interesting choice. Trying to read people?" I closed my notebook gently. "I prefer understanding them." There was a slight pause. He expected something more. A laugh, a playful tone, a crack in my posture. I gave him none. "You're new," he continued. "Transferred this year?" "Yes." "From?" I told him. He nodded like he approved of the answer. "That explains it." "Explains what?" "You don't look impressed by anything here." His smile widened slightly. There it was. The hook. He wanted reaction. I met his gaze calmly. "I'm impressed by substance. Not flirtatious, not sharp, just factual." Behind him, I noticed movement. His friends. Trying not to stare. Trying very hard to look casual. Zane shifted weight slightly. "So what impresses you?" I stood up, sliding my notebook into my bag. "Consistency." He opened his mouth to continue, and that's when I checked my watch. "Excuse me," I said politely, and I walked past him. Mid-conversation. Not dramatic, not rude, just finished. There's a very specific kind of silence that follows unexpected dismissal. Not loud, just thin. Aiden blinked. Maya tried to hide her smile. Ethan let out a low whistle. "Bro." Zane didn't move immediately. His posture stayed intact. His smile didn't disappear. But something behind it flickered. Not anger. Not yet. Something closer to disbelief. She didn't even... Aiden started laughing. She didn't even finish listening. Zane exhaled through his nose. "Relax," he said lightly. She's just playing hard to get. Rowan finally spoke. She wasn't playing. It wasn't loud, but it landed. Zane glanced at him. And you know that how? Rowan held his gaze for half a second longer than comfortable. Because she wasn't looking for you to chase her. That wasn't an insult. It was observation. And ego hates observation. I went home that night, unaware of the conversation unfolding around my absence. I reviewed lecture slides, highlighted definitions. Avoidant attachment, fear of vulnerability, trust built slowly. I didn't know someone was about to test every boundary I had carefully constructed. Back on campus, as the sky dimmed and the courtyard emptied, Rowan sat alone for a moment after the others left. He stared at the pavement, then at the building where my classes were held. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't impressed. He was thinking. And sometimes, thinking is the first step toward something irreversible. Curiosity is quieter than desire, but it lasts longer. If mistakes had warning labels, they would look harmless. That evening, the 5 of them were back on the stone steps outside the business building. The sky had shifted from gray to that deep blue London keeps just before night fully settles. Aiden was mid-story, animated as always. She literally walked past you like you were a lamppost. Ethan laughed. Not even a decorative one. Maya nudged them both. Leave it. Zane leaned back, arms crossed. She's defensive, he said calmly. It wasn't anger in his voice. It was calculation. She thinks ignoring me gives her power. Rowan tilted his head slightly. Or maybe she just doesn't care. That sentence landed differently this time. Zane's eyes flicked toward him. Everyone cares. A beat of silence. Aiden leaned forward. So what's the move then? And there it was. The shift from teasing to strategy. Simple, Aiden continued. You make her break character. Maya frowned. That sounds worse than it needs to. Ethan shrugged. It's not like we're hurting anyone. It's just a bet, Aiden finished. Zane smirked slightly. And what exactly am I betting? Aiden grinned. That you can't get her interested. Zane's jaw flexed. I don't need to get her interested. That's what makes it fun, Ethan said lightly. Fun, Rowan repeated under his breath. Zane glanced at him again. You think I can't? Rowan held his gaze. I think she's not like the others. That sentence had no challenge in it, just truth. And truth irritates pride. Maya crossed her arms. This is dumb. Aiden laughed. It's not that deep. But sometimes the most damaging decisions start with, it's not that deep. Zane leaned forward now. All right, he said slowly. Let's make it interesting. Aiden's eyes lit up. Oh? If I make her admit she's interested, dinner's on you lot for a month. Ethan whistled. And if you don't? Zane smiled. I won't need to pay. Rowan exhaled quietly. You're assuming she's playing. Zane's eyes narrowed slightly. She is. Rowan shook his head once. She's not performing. She's contained. That word lingered. Contained. Maya looked between them. So what's the actual plan? Zane's gaze drifted toward the psychology building across the courtyard. She won't respond to me directly. Aiden smirked. Then use a different approach. Zane's eyes slowly returned to Rowan, and the air changed. You're the quiet one, Aiden said, turning fully toward Rowan now. Rowan didn't react. You don't threaten people. Ethan nodded. Yeah, you're less obvious. Zane didn't smile this time. You think you could get close to her? The question wasn't aggressive. It was strategic. Rowan's fingers tightened slightly against his knee. Why would I? Aiden rolled his eyes. Because it's funny. It's not funny, Rowan replied evenly. Zane leaned in just slightly. It's not cruel either. Rowan looked at him. It's manipulation. The word landed heavier than expected. Maya looked uncomfortable. Ethan shifted. Aiden scoffed. It's flirting, not warfare. Rowan's jaw moved once. She doesn't flirt. Zane's voice softened. That's why it's interesting. Years later, when I replay that evening in my head, I don't see arrogance on Rowan's face. I see hesitation. The kind that comes before someone ignores their better judgment. He wasn't thinking about conquest. He wasn't thinking about humiliation. He was thinking about loyalty. About not looking weak in front of his closest friends. About not being the odd one out. Group pressure doesn't shout. It hums. And that hum is sometimes louder than conscience.